crews were trained using Vickers Wellington aircraft. With the 142 Squadron, John flew in both the British North Africa Force and the Central Mediterranean Force. He completed 12 bombing missions from Amendola in Italy, night bombing German supply lines in northern Italy and across the Balkan countries. In his logbook, the 13th mission, his last, is recorded in someone else's handwriting, and it reads, Budapest, missing. In my search for a broader picture of who John was, I've made some incredible discoveries. First, I stumbled upon a letter in an Australian newspaper that led me to a man called Stuart, who lives in Australia. He is the nephew of Kenneth Turley, the RAAF first pilot in John's crew. The realisation that our uncles had flown together has resulted in us sharing information to piece together our family histories. Sadly, the last entry in Kenneth Turley's logbook is written in the same handwriting as John's and also reads, Budapest, missing. My second discovery was John's wife. John fell in love with a young English girl, a driver in the RAF, called Ethel Syrett, known as Pat, whom he met at a dance in Bournemouth after arriving in England. They spent every possible moment together whilst John was in England, and at the end of his training they married in September 1943. Their 10-day honeymoon was spent in London, after which John flew out of England, and sadly, Pat never saw him again. At the end of the war, Pat remarried, moved to Australia and began a new life. After a lot of searching, I was very excited to find Pat, aged 90 and living in Queensland. She was equally as excited to be back in touch with our family. We have met together and she has shared with me so much about John. We keep in touch and I now have both a lovely new aunt and a friend. My third finding was an 89-year-old gentleman called Don Cruden, a navigator who was in the same RAAF intake as John, and so he mirrored John's training from Sydney to Bournemouth via Canada. He didn't know John well, but he has been extremely generous with his detailed descriptions of their wartime experiences and has kindly answered my many questions. And finally, I've spoken to the wife, the sister and a son of John's best friend from his childhood in Casino. I have found that John's memory lives on in the Everyburns family as well as our own. Many members of my family, along with the new contacts I have made, have shared anecdotes, photographs and letters about John. They have all touched my heart with their generosity and interest in helping me to tell John's story. Amongst my mother's treasures of her lost brother is a recording of John's voice on an old Red Cross record, which I have had remastered on a CD. Hearing his voice for the first time was amazing. It melted away the years, and it was as though John was here with us still. We aren't the first in our family to travel to Australia to visit this place, but this time John's story has been told at an Anzac service. And I'd like to thank the Australian Ambassador to Hungary, Mr. John Griffin, for this wonderful opportunity. It is a great comfort to the families of these Australian and New Zealand men buried here that their sons are remembered and cared for so far from home. Thank you to those who look after this beautiful, solemn sanctuary and to those who arrange this Anzac service every year. John Stuart Boden has not been forgotten. After 69 years and 9 days, he still lives on in the hearts and minds of his family, the families of his friends and all those who loved him. Like so many others who served their country, John is a true hero and will forever remain so, lest we forget. Thank you.